Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Perpetual Chess Bonus Pod. We are joining you here covering the World Championship after round 9, and I am pleased to be rejoined by an old friend who is beaming in from Singapore, fresh from the press conference. He's an award-winning chess journalist these days, best known as Fun Master Mike on Chess Kid, but does get to moonlight at these World Championships, and I always enjoy his questions and coverage, and pleased to welcome back Fun Master Mike, FIDE Master Mike Klein. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Ben. This is a tradition like no other. No, wait, that's some other tagline. But I always join you for the World Champs, and I always get to talk about some stuff that interests me. So happy to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited. You always bring the behind-the-scenes flavor. I was saying to you before we were recording, I feel like these World Championships are covered in such amazing detail, and there's so many great video recaps. And you've got people like Magnus and Levy doing these daily recaps. Anish was amazing on the commentary. I'm always a fan of Daniel King. There's just like whatever it is that you want, you can find the coverage. So I'm excited. The one thing that we can provide is what it's like there and how you compare this as someone who's been to so many of these World Championships. So first of all, I mean, we talked about this with IM Michael Rahal, who I'm sure you're bumping into regularly over there a bit. But how does this one compare to other World Championships in terms of like venue and organization?
Yeah, great first question. I actually had breakfast with Michael and hung out with him by the pool today. So yeah, Mike and Mike are on effect.
Yeah.
I will say in the 6 World Championships that I've been to, this being the 6th, this is the first time they've had an organizing committee that has reached out to the journalists and people that are associated with the event to actually help you do things like book hotels and understand the format and let you know what, the special events will be. They've also done something I've wanted to have done for years, which is to have events on the rest day, to have master classes, to have an associated with open tournament, a kids tournament. Like it's got a bit of a festival atmosphere. So they, one of the members of their organizing committee flew to Budapest during the Olympiad like 2 months ago and came to the media room and talked to all the journalists. Said, what do you need? Here's a special hotel booking. Can we book the hotel for you? They offered to pick me up in a car at the airport. That never happens.
Yeah.
I was actually here a little bit early because I covered the freestyle event with Magnus and Fabi. So, I told them I have a yacht, so I don't need a car. But they've been great. Singapore, everything runs perfectly. My only quibble is, and it's nothing to do with the tournament at all, they are rule followers in Singapore. Like today I was looking to buy an extra suit and they told me, no, the Black Friday discount has ended. And I was like, hey, is there any way you could extend the... And they looked at me like, what? No, that's not what we do. They do jaywalk. That's the only thing in Singapore. That's their vice. You are allowed to jaywalk in Singapore.
Are there still rules around chewing gum there?
So the gum thing I've asked wide and far about. You are allowed to chew gum, but they're not allowed to sell gum here. I don't know if you can bring in gum. I may or may not, but definitely did have a little bit of gum on me. I was rationing the gum. The gum is gone, but now we're rationing the whiskey, actually, because you're only allowed to bring in 1 bottle. And I didn't know how long the match is going to last. So now it's like, just very small pours because it looks like we're going all the way to the end.
But you can buy whiskey. It's just heavily taxed.
Yeah. In fact, you go into the whiskey stores and like you say, hey, do you have anything that, from Talisker? And they're like, yeah, we have a Talisker 35 here. And I'm like, come on, man, that's not for the common, they've got bottles that are 50,000 Singapore dollars, which is like, 40,000 US. They've got some bottles that say price on ask. Now, if you have to ask the price of a bottle, that's not, So you can buy it, but it's a little pricey.
And what about like standard fare, Jim Beam, Jack Daniels? I mean, those are American companies, but like, can you buy a regular bottle of whiskey or whatever your drink of choice?
I have found it. Yeah. The taxes are really high. I did do a little bit of tactics. Once I realized I could only bring in 1 liter, I thought, who do I know that's coming in? I am Andros Toth for the win.
Oh, he's coming. Oh, interesting.
He's here. Super nice guy, bit of a teetotaler, doesn't drink. I hooked him up with the VIP pass through my Chessable connection. He hooked up the bottle, paid him back, of course. But we are working through the second bottle as we speak. He's actually releasing a Chessable course day by day on each round.
Yeah, that I knew. And I was actually thinking about rounding him up for round 12. Spoiler alert. Didn't even know he was going to be in Singapore. So Andres better shut off his messages, or else he's going to get roped in. But Mike, I wanted to follow up on one thing you mentioned. So, for listeners not familiar with the freestyle match that took place between Fabiano and Magnus, it took place on a yacht. So you got on that yacht.
I did. I arrived. Bangkok was sort of my base. I got in to show you how well Singapore runs. I landed at 10:15. I was through customs, immigration, in the taxi, and at 11 o'clock, I was on top of the 70th floor of a hotel. They did 3 events. Okay, so here's the idea. The first night they were in the air. 70th floor, you're in the air. The next night it was on a yacht, so that they're at sea, and then the third night they played in a vault that housed expensive artwork and gold bullion. So that was supposed to be underground. And I'm going to tell you, the vault wasn't technically underground, but it was super high security. You probably saw the pictures. We were right next to $44 million in gold bullion. And as the night went on, you kind of forgot it was there.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was their idea: air, sea, underground. And the yacht was the hardest to get on because even though we didn't leave the marina, there are safety rules. And again, this is Singapore. Everything's by the book. So the captain, there had to be a captain on the boat. There's only so many people there allowed for health and safety reasons. But I was supporting the broadcast with interviews, so I was able to sneak onto that boat.
Ah, nice. And how does it compare to in terms of all the venues you've been to covering events?
Well, I will say we were renting a boat. The man who runs Freestyle Chess does not have a boat here. So there's a no shoes policy. So I think it's the world's highest rated chess game played without shoes on. Has to be, right? Fabi versus Magnus, no shoes. It was a little tricky because of just getting air conditioning into the cabin where the 2 players played. But they still had the full culinary experience, meaning they had the private chef. And if you ever watch, okay, so we all have guilty pleasures, right? My guilty pleasure reality TV is Life Below Deck, where all the really pretty 20-somethings talk about how it is to be like a stewardess on a yacht and a bosun. And all those people were on the yacht. Like, it was fully crewed. So yeah, we had like sushi and stuff. And it was one of the more sort of delightful experiences that I've ever been a part of. But yeah, they're full of interesting ideas. And I even brought one up. I interviewed the billionaire and who runs the event. And I said, hey, I've always wanted to do an event in zero gravity. You have those flights you can buy where it's parabolic, and during the dive, you're in zero gravity. I want to do it. And he just looked at me. He's like, yeah, we should do that. So nobody steal the idea. Okay? I want to be the first who. Here's my idea. You play a chess game during it's a parabolic flight, right? You're in like an old 737 going up and down. And when you're in zero gravity, you play. And then when you're in the ascent, you're in like positive gravity. You're like stuck to the fuselage of the plane, and that's the thinking time. So that's my magnetic chess set, in case anybody's wondering.
Man, sounds like Rex Singfeld has some competition. he and what was it, Butner are gonna get in a bidding war or one-upsmanship war in terms of what they can do to promote chess. But I'm here for it. I'm glad to have it. All right, well, let's talk about this match a bit. So I don't know. I know you like to remain impartial, like a true journalist. But I mean, I did ask Yoon Ludwig Hammer when we chatted after round 6 if the closeness of the match conformed to his expectations. Are you willing to answer that?
Yeah, this is where I get super boring, and people look at me like I'm crazy. Like, why would you not weigh in? But that's just my training. It's like, don't weigh in. I know that the line of journalists and commentators gotten totally blurry and stuff. So I will say I'm a little bit surprised that Ding has been able to hold these positions, especially when, it's not. I'm not revealing any secrets here. He's just clearly not pushing, just completely acquiescing to draws in equal positions. So I asked him before the match, like, is there any weakness in Gukesh's game? And he actually said, well, if there is one, it's rapid and blitz. Now, I know, you've got many games to go, but it kind of seems like he's just going for that tiebreak. Obviously, it served him well in 2023. So that seems to be what's going on. And Gukesh, at first I thought maybe he was playing these equal positions for psychology, but maybe he's literally trying to just avoid the tiebreak. And we've heard Magnus's comments, right? Magnus said that Gukesh has done nothing of substance ever in rapid chess. So, and anyway, that seems to be what's happening, and from my vantage point.
That's interesting that you did hear him explicitly say that, because that's obviously how he's playing. And in today's press conference, again, recording after round 9, one of the reporters, I don't think it was you, Mike, asked him about like sort of the echo chamber and how much they're watching outside coverage. And Ding admitted to being like he's not as shut off as Gukesh. Gukesh said he totally tunes out, and Ding admitted, and they asked him like, well, Ding, and this is paraphrasing, like, what do you think when you hear stuff like you're not taking advantage, you're not pushing your opportunities? And he basically said it's true. He didn't. That's one thing both he and Magnus share, is they're honest, sometimes to a fault. I know some people with Magnus are saying it almost like it feels like it's affecting the match, because Magnus he has obviously such a wide audience, rightfully so. And so now when he says something, it's getting like repeated to the players in the press conferences and so on and so forth. But I love that both of them just say what they think.
You're exactly right. And in fact, this is the first time in all my 6 world championships that I've actually gotten sit-down interviews with the players before round 1. I've been working this angle for a couple of months. So before round 1, I'm talking about like 2 days before, on the media day, I got a 15-minute interview with Ding and a 15-minute interview with Gukesh. I was the only chess journalist to do so. Agence France Press got one, and so did the local newspaper. But I talked to FIDE, and I was like, hey guys, I know you do these things, and chess.com's never been picked, so can you pick us for once? And so I want to thank FIDE for organizing this. So if you want to catch the full Ding interview, it is on the chess.com YouTube page, and I believe the Gukesh one we put on our chess.com India page. But I asked Ding in that interview, we all know you're honest. I said, does your team ever tell you to be a little less honest? And from memory, I believe he said, yeah. So he's honest enough to tell me that his team did not want him to be so honest. But obviously, it's a delight. He's been smiling and laughing way more than I think even last year, and he had a lot more wins last year. So it's great. He's charming, and I think a lot of people are rooting for he's played stable chess, and a lot of people are rooting for him to have a resurgence.
So you feel like, I mean, obviously there might be some confirmation bias that's kind of unavoidable in a situation like this, but you feel like you do notice a difference in his comportment compared to the Nepo match?
I think so. I only covered about 8 or 9 games of the Nepo match, so I can't say I had the full spectrum of what he was like in the later rounds. Obviously, he's been suffering far fewer losses, right? And the losses do cloud your memory because he gets so down after the losses. Round 3, he just looked incredibly sad. So last year, he had more losses, and that definitely clouds your thinking because the emotion on his face was so visceral. We remember how sad Ding was. He's only had one of those losses this year, and he did feel, to me, just as sad as last year. But here's a funny story. After each round, when he comes out of the press conference, I ask him for a one-on-one interview. But, I'm a human. And in round 3, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I just couldn't go up to him and ask. And in round 4, when he came up to me and I asked him for an interview, first thing he said is, where were you in round 3?
Oh, wow.
He really said that. And I'm like, did you really want me to? Or maybe he forgot how sad he was because it was a rest day. I don't know. But a pretty amazing thing for him to say. By the way, for the public wondering, Gukesh has told FIDE that he doesn't want to do any non-required press until the end. So if they're just wondering, obviously I have asked, I've confirmed again with his father. I've said to his father, hey, I know what you said before the tournament. And I respect that. That's actually how it usually is. The players usually live in a complete bubble. So it has surprised me that Ding is giving me interviews every round. That's never really happened at a world championship. I used to, in 2021, I talked with Jan Nepomniachtchi, but there were some contractual things in there. So it's just been a delight talking with Ding. And of course, Gukesh is an amazing young man too. So composed. So, but it's been actually really interesting to cover this one.
Do you think there's some chance that Ding doesn't know it's not in the contract to do these interviews with you?
Not really, because I'm pretty in touch with his team, shall we say. And every round when he comes out, I say to him like, hey, Ding, do you want to have your daily talk with me? It's totally fine. You can always say no. And I give him that avenue. And he always stays. So that's been kind of nice. And he's got a really nice team around him. He's got somebody on his team that communicates with me whenever I need something. For example, today, I wanted final clarification on do we say Liren or do we say Liren? Because
Right.
Maurice switched, and I was following Maurice's lead, but Maurice has gone back, and I have final confirmation that it's Liren, not Liren, but Liren, but not Liren. So I switched Leen. Yeah. So anyway,
Okay, I
that's
did notice you were saying Lijian and some others weren't in the press conferences, so it's good to get clarification on that. That's
yeah,
funny.
yeah.
Um, and in terms of like the openings, so obviously you're again dyed in the wool, journalistically trained, so unwilling to make incorrect predictions, unlike myself. But are you willing to speculate recklessly about openings? Like what have you thought of the opening choices, and then any predictions as Ding will have in this next little set of 3 matches? Ding will have the white pieces
I
twice.
don't I don't know anything about Ding, but man, to go back to E4 and play against the French in game 5, that was the one game where it looked like Gukesh's team was befuddled. You play E4, you go back to the French, you get less than nothing. I mean, I've never
Is
even
that the
looked at that.
exchange one?
Yeah, they exchange the queens on move 9.
Yeah,
Queen takes E7. I thought his team, well, maybe this is somebody else's prognostication. His team was buying time to
yeah.
actually like come up with something. Of course, they haven't really. They haven't gone back to the French. So that's the one that surprised me. But I have to say, in round 7 and 8, it's pretty clear that Gukesh's team has outprepared Ding. I mean, you've got the rookie 1 move, and you've got the
Yeah.
F6 move, and Gukesh, he would never be so vainglorious as to say it in that term, but he basically said, like, my team did me a solid by finding these
Yeah.
moves, especially proud of the F6 move. And that's why you got Gaevsky, right? He's got so much experience with Vichy. By the way, Vichy's been quite clever. To give you a funny Vichy story, we got to name drop him. In my one-on-one with Gukesh before round 1, I was like, hey, I got to ask, what's Vichy's role? And Gukesh is like, yeah, he's not helping me for the tournament, And then I rode the elevator with Vichy, who I know pretty well personally. And I turned to him and I was like, hey, I got to wear my journalism hat for a second here, Vichy. We were just riding the elevator. It's like, I got to ask, are you working with Gukesh? And he's like, no.
Okay.
But then he started changing his answer because, of course, people are asking him here. And now what Vichy's been saying is, no, but you shouldn't believe anything I say in answer to that question.
Okay, so you're saying there's a chance. Yeah.
Super clever. I don't know, but Vichy's such a delight. I'm not really gonna, try to get a real answer. That's all he's gonna say anyway.
So are you and Vichy and people like that, you're staying on the premises where the match is, or you got a lot of commutes going on?
Yeah, I'm staying at the host hotel. There's actually a couple hotels in this complex. We're in like the Orlando, Florida of Singapore. We're on
Okay.
this island where it's like mostly families coming to go to Universal Studios, and there's an aquarium and a water park. So I'm at the host hotel. I'm on the 4th floor. The players are both on the 8th floor, both teams. So I guess there could be some awkward passing in the hallways. They hold elevators for the players to come down to make sure they don't accidentally, walk onto the same elevator on their way down to the tournament. I don't see the players much throughout the day, but I do see some seconds and FIDE officials at breakfast. I've had breakfast with Vichy a few times. And so, yeah, most of the FIDE brass is staying here at this hotel. And if you're not at this hotel, you're at another one, which is a 5-minute walk away. We should talk about the walk, by the way. I've got a good one for this. So
Okay.
when the players exit the playing hall, we all queue up with our phones or our DSLRs to get some video. Now, they each board different minivans. And then they are taken 600 meters away to the convention center because there's a slightly larger room for press conferences. So most days, I get video of them going in the van. But now, if I wait for the media van, I miss the players entering. So I literally book it, and I have to beat a van down the street to get them exiting. Now, today was the funniest day because I'm in round 9, right? And Ben, you know my age. We grew up in the Scholastic circuit. So every day I'm like, I'm not running today. I'm in a suit.
Yeah.
I'm not doing it today. But of course, today what happened? Richard Rapport joined, and everybody loves a good Ding Richie moment, right? So I see them bored, and I'm like, all right, I guess I'm running today. But today I ran exactly equal with the van. Like we were the same pace, right? And so I get there and I get the video and I turn off my video and I turn to Richard Rapport and I was like, were you guys laughing at me? Because I'm running beside their bus. He's like, no, it was just me laughing at you. So I made a deal. I said, Richard, the next time you have to get video of me running so that I can post that. So we'll see. It's been, yeah, it helps to be fit. And I want to say, you know who's in the gym every day before I am?
Gukesh.
No, good guess. Leoncho Garcia. I don't even know his age. He's on the elliptical. He's there every morning. So I guess you got to be fit to be a journalist. I don't know.
Yeah, this is the famed Spanish newspaper reporter. Yeah, there's a lot of funny stories there. Well, Mike, it's always fun to get this sort of behind the scenes flavor. So, could you rank your World Championship experiences? Like, what's important to you as a journalist? The quality of the chess, the entertainment factor, the suspense, the conditions. What matters the most in terms of just how you enjoy the experience?
So for my like intellectual vigor, it's access to the players, and this one is maybe number one.
Wow. Okay.
Because I got the two sit down one on ones. That's never happened, and that's where you get to flesh stuff out. I mean, some people listening to this, they watch me at the press conference. I ask one question that doesn't land, and then I become, I don't know, some sort of meme or something. But when you can sit down with a player, get them comfortable, and talk and expand upon your ideas, that is kind of what we live for as journalists. So that's been great. And then, of course, I get something exclusive with Ding nearly every round. So that's been great. And even though we've got some draws, they've been fighting draws. This is not London again in 2018 where it was all draws. So this one is really, really high up there. My first one was in Sochi in 2014. And because it was after the Olympics, but it was before ski season, basically the town was empty. Everybody was at the same hotel. And the cool thing about that one is, what does Magnus like to do? He likes to play sports, but he needs warm bodies. And so on the rest days, he needed the journalists to be his sparring partners to play basketball and football. And then after like 3 hours of sport, we would pick up our cameras, and then he did us a solid and gave us some interviews. So, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, this one's pretty high up there.
And Gukesh in today's press conference mentioned that he likes to engage in sports on the rest days, but I'm guessing you haven't been no soccer/football with or basketball with Gukesh yet.
Not yet. They're big into racket sports. Ding, as you might guess, loves table tennis, and Gukesh has been seen playing tennis with Gajewski. I would love to play tennis. I actually played a world championship this summer. I played the chess tennis world championship in Baden-Baden, but no, I'm not chasing them around trying to figure out where they are on the rest days. I'm letting them be.
And was like Paul Rudd at that thing? It was something super random.
It was a doppelganger. I never explained that on Twitter. It's a guy that, and he weirdly didn't know who Paul Rudd was. But yeah,
it had me fooled. Okay, was there anyone unusually famous? Because I feel like there was one or two others. Where I was like, what are they doing there?
There was a couple of GMs, but there's nobody there's no D-list, or I guess I'm not going to call Paul Rudd D-list, but no, there was no like famous people that I know of there.
Okay.
So yeah, pleasant time, but yeah, just your French GMs, and they were, by the way, they were delightful. If you guys ever want to hang out with like one nationality, hang out with the French teams. I
always get that impression. They always seem so tight knit at the Olympiads and stuff. Yeah.
I could drop an Olympiad French story, but we're getting a little bit out of bounds here. So
depends how good the story is. I'll leave it up to you. But one closing thought. So just to touch on the games a little bit, again, the reason we're not focusing on them as much is A, this is for most people audio only, and B, there's been so much fantastic coverage that it's really worth anyone listening making time and just watching whatever your preferred recap is for 15 to 20 minutes, or just playing through the moves, or both. But I mean, game 7 and 8 in particular, massive opportunities, and they didn't break through. Especially Gukesh has had some chances today. A little bit closer to the vest. I saw briefly that the chess.com accuracy score was over 99 for both of them. So do you think there's going to be a decisive result? Can you venture that prediction? I mean, my predictions have been wrong so far, but I still feel like someone's going to break through.
Yeah, I mean, 5 games left. I mean, statistically speaking, I would be kind of silly if I guessed for 5 draws. So I do think there's going to be a decisive result. I can't say necessarily from who. It does feel like Gukesh will either win by pressing or he will overpress.
Right.
He's got that teenage bravado. So if any early indications are going to come true, I would say that one of those two things will happen. Interestingly, I brought up at the press conference today an idea that used to get brought up at all the other world championships, which is I asked Gukesh, would you like the idea of playing the tiebreak before round one, which does two things? It gives the public guaranteed rapid games, which is nice, more chess. And number two, we go into the event knowing who would win in case of a 7-7 tie. So that means the players will play differently. Now, there is a risk that the player that wins the rapid plays more conservatively, but can you really just draw 14 games on demand?
Right.
I talked about this with Maurice, and Maurice wasn't so sure. But then I said, what about if we do the rapid tiebreak like halfway through the event? And he was a little bit game for that idea. But anyway, it doesn't get brought up as much anymore because we actually have, I think London 2018 scarred a lot of people. But anyway, I'm happy that we're past that. I think we're going to see a decisive result. So, yeah.
Yeah, I caught that in the press conference. And as someone who's obviously been talking about these world championships for, doing this podcast 8 years now, like it comes up all the time. I've probably had 10 different conversations where we say like, well, what about doing the tiebreak before? So I couldn't believe that Gukesh had never even heard the idea. It really shows A, his youth, and B, that he's actually focusing on the right things. He's not sitting there, like speculating. He's actually working on his chess and competing. So, but yeah, enjoyed that question. And I actually haven't heard as much. Like, I feel like people have come to grips with the format and people are enjoying the match. I mean, I don't hear a lot of grumbling about like, we should do this, we should do that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think two things happened. They extended the match to 14 games and Magnus stopped playing.
Right.
Magnus was just unbeatable. So yeah, we've had pretty thrilling, world championships. And Magnus, if you're listening, I know you are. We do miss you. It's just you're kind of too good.
Yeah, and the dichotomy of like them, grinding their butts off, long, tumultuous games where any result is possible, and then Magnus doing these recaps from the beach is not missed on me. Although I will say, in his defense, like he's at the beach, but he's doing a training camp for the World Rapid and Blitz, and I think it's the Champions Chess Tour. So he's not fully enjoying the retired life, but still, you can see why. I enjoyed whoever it was who asked the other day whether the players were having fun. I really enjoyed that question because every time I play OTB, which is not that often, that's what I ask myself. Am I having fun? And then I'm not sure, It's like, I don't know where to begin,
Yeah, I've asked that same question at previous world championships, and Gukesh wasn't sure if he was having fun.
Exactly.
His answer was his answer was basically like, well, this is what I've always wanted to do.
Right.
But yeah, that doesn't always denote fun. So anyway, I enjoyed that question, and I really love those questions that get inside the head of the players. No, there's like 50 people walking this earth that can tell what it's like to play a world championship.
Exactly.
And we'd really like to just sort of understand that. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's easier said than done to come up with questions, as you know well, because like Michael Rahal, when I chatted with him a few days ago, was like, you can send me a question if you want. And I've been thinking, and I'm like, it's a lot of pressure, got Chess Reddit has their knives out if I ask something stupid, as you know well. So haven't thought of anything yet, but I agree in principle, the idea of like, what's it like? What's that? And that's why, obviously, again, hearing Magnus's perspective is so invaluable.
Yeah, and if I could just cut you off and speak to that. So this is like, round 9, and I ask it like one question at the press conference, and I do like 3 or 4 with Ding, and I did the pre-event, 15-minute. So first of all, for my own mental health, I haven't gone on Reddit once, so that's like really helping me. But secondly, I do think somebody told me that my question about numerology didn't land. But here's my defense to that question. So I've interviewed Kasparov several times, and he talks almost mystically about the number 13. Now, you may think that's crazy for like the best chess player or number 2 player of all time, whatever you want to call him. But he was born on the 13th world champion. And there's a third event, which I can't remember. I apologize. So when I ask Gukesh about being the 18th world champion at the age of 18, it can go one of two ways. He might say, Yeah, I thought about that. And you know what? My mother's birthday is on the 18th, and
Right.
we had a discussion about it. And then I look like a genius for stumbling into something, but it turns out he just doesn't believe in superstitions. But we actually found that out by me asking the question. And he actually gave kind of a banger of a response where, he brought up Fisher's quote. So you don't know until you ask. And it feels like sometimes the journalist questions are judged by how much the respondent engages. But the reason we ask is because we don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Now, you can quibble. We're not perfect. When they play a 5.5 hour super intricate game and you ask them what they had for dinner, that may be a little out of bounds. But, in general, we have the best intentions. We're all trying to promote the game. And over the course of a long event, not every question is just going to land. And that's sort of my response. So, but yeah, people that are online critiquing, they have that right. And I will say this, nobody once has ever come up to me and said anything negative to my face. And that is the world that we live in. It's all,
Yeah.
hiding behind the computer. So there's been a lot of love here for Chess Kid. So many kids I've met. I actually went to an event at a school, 3,000 kids. They all learned chess. I walked in, they were all cheering my name. And then you remember like what it's all about. Like I am here to promote the game in a journalistic capacity, but also on Chess Kid. And so, yeah, that's just kind of my response to some of the people who are armchair quarterbacking all the interviews.
Yeah, well said. And to your point from earlier, the group press conference where you have one question is an unforgiving setting because people are
Yeah.
watching them live. And if you were doing a 20-minute one-on-one and you have a question that's a total dud, you can just edit it out. And no one's the wiser, and time has been saved in terms of people watching. I also think with the chess culture, I think in particular with the chess.com broadcast cutting straight to the post-game press conferences, I think it's more it's they get a higher percentage of people watch the press conferences than they would in a typical sporting event, whereas normally people watch a basketball game, only the true diehards are going to stick around for the press conference. But because it's immediate and you're opted into it, everyone ends up watching, and that opens the door for, as you say, armchair quarterbacks.
I just thought about this. We're talking about quarterbacks. I'm going to relate the press conferences to the commercials at the Super Bowl. If the game is boring, then they're like,
Right.
oh, but now we can talk about how Budweiser used frogs, and that was a stupid idea. No, that was a brilliant idea. So maybe that's it. I don't know, but I do enjoy my job, and it's sometimes tricky to come up with new and interesting. And sometimes I ask about chess, and sometimes not. But I've heard everything. I speak too quickly, or I use too complicated words for Ding, or I ask more questions to Gukesh, and it's like, yeah, everybody's got an opinion. And but I am trying to bring out the players and the game and the actual chess analysis. So anyway, that's it's not a defense. It's just my vantage point. So.
Makes sense. Yeah. And I, for one, appreciate your work, biased though I may be. And yeah, so thank you for making the trips. I know you don't really have to anymore. You do it because you enjoy it and want to elevate the game, as you say.
Thank you, Ben. There's tons of Thai food here, so you are welcome at any time. And I want to see you.
Sounds
I
good
want to
to
see
me.
you come to the press conferences and
Are you
ask
going
some
to the
questions.
World Rapid and Blitz?
I
We could
don't
ask
know.
you when recording. What's up?
Yeah, it's a great question. But immediately after here, I fly directly to Oslo, where I'm going to be the reporter for the Champions Chess Tour Finals, which is in person in Oslo. So I don't get back to the U.S. until like a few days before Christmas, and I'm just trying to sort of balance my energy level. We're not spring chickens anymore, so
Yeah.
but it's right in New York. You're going. You got to go, right?
Yeah, I'm finally, knock on wood, it's not 100%, but in all likelihood, I'll be there. So if anyone's coming and sees me, say hi. And sorry, it sounds like I'll miss you there.
Yeah, you never know. But if you do go, we'll hang out in the press room, and you'll hear about your questions on Reddit, I guess.
Exactly. And we were getting ready to sign off, but Mike thought of one more story. So for listeners who heard my interview with I Am Michael Rahal, we talked about the whole Ding Chillin' meme, which involves ice cream. I've become a bit more, I understand the meme a little bit more, but not enough to try to explain it. But anyway, we'll let Mike tell this story.
Okay, we'll skip over the meme because it had to be explained to me. I'm in the 40 plus crowd. But basically, we found out that Ding chilling, there's an ice cream connection. Of course, Ding said he had not had any ice cream. And in our one-on-one, I asked, Ding a follow-up, like, what's your favorite ice cream? And he said strawberry. So after he said that, for the next round, we went out and bought two different kinds of strawberry ice cream. And we actually found a freezer at the hotel. And luckily, we had another colleague here from chess.com at the time. And as soon as it looked like the game was going to end, she rushed down, grabbed the ice cream from the freezer. And in the post game, the one-on-one I did with Ding the next round, before we even got going, I presented him with ice cream, two different kinds of strawberry, Haagen-Dazs and Ben and Jerry. We did the interview, and to my surprise, he actually ate the ice cream on the escalator up. There's a video we have of him showing Niwa the two ice creams. He picks the Haagen-Dazs. I found out from a Chinese source, Haagen-Dazs has positioned itself as an upscale ice cream brand in China.
Interesting.
Remember, it's famously made in New York, not Germany. So
Right.
he picked New York over Vermont. And yeah, he's actually eating the ice cream on the way to the van. We got some video of it. So yeah, it was a sweet moment. But as we've talked about all pod, he's just a super genuine guy. And he wasn't looking at it like, oh, there's this hollow gesture. He's like, hey, this nice guy brought me some ice cream. I'm going to eat the ice cream before it melts. So there you go. Yeah.
That's a great story. Yeah. And obviously there's been like studies on decision fatigue. And after you play like a 5-hour game, I've noticed myself, like a lot of emotional eating takes place after long chess games. So if someone, whether win or lose, it's like, you're just like, if something tastes good is presented to me, I'm going to eat it. So, so I can't blame him at all for, although I do question his favorite ice cream choice, but to each his own.
Yeah. Haagen-Dazs, come on. Ben and Jerry's
strawberry.
So.
Come on. Let's be serious here.
Well, you know what I think it was, if I'm being honest? I believe I can't name the strawberry naming convention of Ben and Jerry's, but I believe it's some sort of, you know how Ben and Jerry's names their ice creams Chunky Monkey? That can't possibly land to a Chinese speaker. So I think he was just simply confused, whereas Haagen-Dazs probably just calls it strawberry. So it was a safer choice.
Okay. All right, Mike. Well, appreciate stories like these. And thanks as always for beaming in. Enjoy the rest of the match. And yeah, we'll look forward to more coverage.
Thanks, Ben. This was a pleasure as always. I always look forward to this for the World Championship.
Okay. Take care, Mike. Until next time.